are going to try and find out by looking into 10 things that you didn't know about the Fantastic Four movie of 2005. So let's throw another failed superhero movie on the Barbie as we check it out. Number 10. The Origins of Fantastic Four. It was 1961 and Marvel Comics was born. It was formerly Timely Comics, which evolved into Atlas Comics. But now the publication had taken off in its final form, of which it would be famously known for. However, the comic brand needed a hook, something to really entice young readers and capture their imaginations. At that time, one of the biggest selling comics came from rival comic company DC, with their comic book issues of Justice League, which of course was a lineup of famous superheroes, which made Stan Lee, the editor-in-chief at Marvel, and artist Jack Kirby to come to the conclusion that making a superhero team is the way to go. So Fantastic Four was created, a superhero family who, while on a space mission, get bombarded by cosmic rays, which gives them superhuman powers and abilities. Reed Richards, aka Mr. Fantastic, who now has the ability to stretch his body. His wife Sue Richards, aka the Invisible Woman, who, like her name implies, can become invisible. Johnny Storm, aka the Human Torch, who can engulf himself in flames without getting hurt and even has the ability to fly. And finally, Ben Grimm, aka the Thing, the lovable, monstrously altered member who now has flesh of stone and superhuman strength, who would get the catchphrase, "It's clobbering time." The Fantastic Four may often be shown as a dysfunctional family at times, but they were bonded by their obscure powers, with them still caring for each other as a close-knit family. And in their adventures, they would go up against many supervillains, including the mask-wearing Dr. Doom. Although over the years, it seems that one of the biggest battles associated with the Fantastic Four was who actually created them, as Stan Lee has claimed that it was mainly his creation and that Jack Kirby mainly helped out with the illustrations. Likewise, Jack Kirby throughout his life would also suggest that the Fantastic Four was mainly his creation. Even historians have gotten in on the case to try and discover who played what part in the creation of Fantastic Four. But you know what? The way I see it, it was Jack and Stan. No need to dissect the tiny details. Really, they were both influential with the creation. Regardless, Fantastic Four was a success and put Marvel Comics on the map, with other well-known Marvel superheroes following in suit, including Spider-Man, X-Men, Iron Man, and the Incredible Hulk, and so on. In 1967, the Fantastic Four would leave the comic book pages for the first time to star in their very own cartoon, which was produced by Hanna-Barbera. Then in 1978, there was a new Fantastic Four cartoon series, appropriately called The New Fantastic Four. Now, I remember this one as a kid, and I was really confused as to why the Human Torch was replaced with a robot called Herbie. I guess it was a licensing issue, but come on, no one wants to see Herbie the robot. Bring on the Human Torch. Oddly, and I do mean oddly, The Thing got his own spin-off show, which was a joint show with the Flintstones, of all things, called Fred and Barney Meet the Thing. And finally, yet another animated series in 1994, which was part of a popular rise of Marvel-based animated shows at that time, which included the X-Men and Spider-Man. So the Fantastic Four could find its place in animation format. However, live-action movies was a whole other ball game, leading to one of the most unique and strangest chapters in superhero movie history. Number 9. The Long Road to a Fantastic Four movie. German producer Bernd Eichinger, who also produced The Neverending Story, really had his sights set on making a Fantastic Four movie as early as 1983. He was told by Stan Lee that if he wanted to buy the Fantastic Four rights, he would have to wait a few years till the rights were available, to which Eichinger did eventually buy the Fantastic Four rights, supposedly for as low as $250,000. Warner Brothers and Columbia Pictures were interested in making a Fantastic Four movie with Eichinger, but felt that the budget was too low and were scared off. Now, the rights were going to expire in 1992, and there was still no Fantastic Four movie. Eisinger asked for an extension of his lease, but he was denied. So in order to keep the rights, Eisinger had to make a movie, and fast, to which he teamed up with King of B-movies himself, Roger Corman, which would lead to the creation of the unreleased 1994 Fantastic Four movie, which was made super cheap for $1 million. Despite the movie's director and cast of this Fantastic Four movie going on tour to promote the movie, they had no idea there was never an intention of releasing the film. It was solely made for the purpose of obtaining the rights. And, yeah, look, personally, that just doesn't sit right with me. I mean, it may have been cheap, but it still actually looks pretty impressive for its budget. And it kind of sucks that all that hard work that was put into the movie by people who generally thought that it would be an actual release had gone to waste. However, this abandoned Fantastic Four film has become something of an obscure anomaly, a curiosity that is frequently sought after by fans of both the superhero genre and lost cinema. Number 8. 20th Century Fox takes charge. At the time the unreleased Fantastic Four movie was made, movie studio 20th Century Fox were keen to make their own Fantastic Four movie. So Marvel, along with producers Avi Arad and Ralph Winter, paid for the negatives of the Roger Corman Fantastic Four movie, so they can keep the print of the movie locked up and out of sight, in order for them to work with 20th Century Fox to make an actual, intended to be released Fantastic Four film, with an appropriate budget. Jump to 1995, and Home Alone and Mrs. Doubtfire director Chris Columbus was hired to write and direct a Fantastic Four movie, and he teamed up with GoldenEye scriptwriter Michael France in order to develop the script. But Columbus decided to walk away from directing duties, where instead his production company 1492 would co-produce the film. According to IMDb, Columbus, whose company was now overseeing the production, as mentioned, wanted the movie to go more balls to the wall with its comedic tone, to be more in line with the campy 1960s Batman TV show. In fact, many directors who would subsequently be considered to direct the movie all had a history of making comedy movies. Heck, even its eventual director, Tim Story, has a lineup of comedy films under his belt. However, it was Story who insisted to Columbus to tone down the comedic elements, citing Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, in that superhero movies can have humour but also be taken seriously and have serious elements. And yes, there is lots of wacky humour in the released film, and I wonder if that does go back to Chris Columbus's original intentions. And I think the humour in the Fantastic Four film did turn people away. But hey, just imagine, the movie probably could have been even more outrageous with its comedy hijinks. Number 7. An onslaught of directors coming and going. As the production went forward, it seems that this particular production couldn't seem to be able to find a director who would stick around long enough to see the project through, as it was going through directors like it was going out of fashion. Over the following years, several directors would be hired but eventually drop out, including Tommy Boy director Peter Segal, George of the Jungle director Sam Wiseman, then Raja Gosnell, but he dropped out to direct the Scooby-Doo movie instead, as well as future Ant-Man director Peyton Reed. Interestingly, Reed said that his version of Fantastic Four took inspiration from the Beatles movie A Hard Day's Night. In other words, A Hard Day's Night, only less Beatles and, well, more superheroes. Wow, just imagine Fantastic Four, The Hard Day's Night version. With directors coming and going, and the release date constantly being pushed back, this surely was one turbulent production. I mean, the only thing that could possibly make this production crazier would be if at one stage they hired, a Goonie to direct the movie. Well, thank God that didn't happen, because that would have been weird. Number 6. Then a Goonie was hired to direct Fantastic Four. So with the Fantastic Four production having more potential directors than I've had hot dinners, the production then looked to former Goonie and Sam from the Lord of the Rings trilogy, Sean Astin, to direct the film. Astin really wanted to direct Fantastic Four, as he wanted to extend his talents to film directing, and thought that if he directed a Fantastic Four movie, then that would give him some clout. You know, some street cred in Hollywood, so to speak. And it did seem that negotiations were going forward, however the studio were a bit dismayed by the fact that he hadn't directed a movie before, and so these plans didn't go through. Finally, Tim Story was hired as director, as the studio was impressed with his action comedy Taxi, which he also made for Fox. That, and he was a fan of Fantastic Four. So the production now had a director. But then there was the script, which was a whole different animal. Comic book writer Sam Hamm, who also worked on the script for the 1989 Batman, was hired to make rewrites to the script. But a few years later, Twin Peaks co-creator Mark Frost was then hired to also make rewrites. And he would be credited alongside Michael France, who was previously working on a script with Chris Columbus. But Wikipedia suggests that Simon Kinberg, who also wrote several X-Men movies, did some uncredited work on the script, as well as director Tim Story himself, on the account that Story saw the Pixar movie The Incredibles and thought that the movies were going to be too similar, and so changes would have to be made. It supposedly was also Story who wanted Fantastic Four to be a special effects heavy movie. Now granted, a lot of special effects would be needed. I mean, we're dealing with superheroes who can stretch and fly around in flames. But yeah, the movie is quite heavy on CGI and loud action set pieces. Probably more than your average superhero movie of that time. So do all the glossy effects make for a fun popcorn movie, or are they all just obnoxious eye candy? Well, that all depends on the beholder. Number 5. Casting possibilities. So with the production now on track, the task was now at hand to find actors to play the iconic parts of the Fantastic Four and their nemesis, Dr. Doom. When Chris Columbus was at the helm of the movie, he really wanted real-life married couple at that time, Dennis Quaid and Meg Ryan, to star as Reed Richards and Sue Storm. When Sean Astin was in negotiations to direct the movie, according to Wikipedia, he envisioned Christina Aguilera as Sue Storm. IMDb offers some other insights into who could have been cast in the Fantastic Four movie, including Paul Walker as Johnny Storm, but the part would be cast with Chris Evans. Now he seems familiar. Oh yeah, that's right, he's that guy from Not Another Teen Movie. John C. Reilly and James Gandolfini were considered for Ben Grimm, aka The Thing, but the part went to Michael Chiklis. When it came to Reed Richards, aka Mr. Fantastic, actors being sought out were Hugh Jackman, George Clooney, Brandon Fraser, and Mads Mikkelsen auditioned, but the role went to Welsh actor Ian Griffith. As for Sue Storm, some of the candidates include Charlize Theron, Kate Bosworth, Julia Stiles, Scarlett